Hey, welcome, everybody. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the day. This is Talking Niagara. Good morning, Dave. How are you?
Good morning. Good morning, Peter. How's everything?
Yep, not too bad, not too bad. And yeah, I
I'll
popped
tell you,
away.
I'm trying. I'm into my short-term pain there. I put some gas in the car last night, and I really do enjoy that short-term pain.
Yeah, I had to as well yesterday. At 181.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, let's hope that thing gets finished quick.
yeah. Well, yeah. Okay. We'll come to that in a little while. That's for sure. All right. Okay. So kids homeless kids has been a subject of research by Brock University professors and grad students.
Yeah, it's always something that's in the back of my mind because when you see some homeless encampments, you'll see kids, you see mothers with little children sometimes, and you think to yourself, God, can somebody at least get the mother and children into some sort of shelter? It's got to
Yeah.
be something available. But apparently, these kids sometimes go homeless off and on or regularly for some time, and of course, then they try to blend in. They need to have friends or whatever, and of course, it's all kinds of problems arise here. Are they getting steady food? Well, thanks to the schools, there's food available, and we talked about that March break. That the only kids that don't like March break are the kids that come from poor or homeless
Yeah.
environments, which would poor environments, which would include homeless, or those unhoused, or however politically correct you got to say it now. Jeez. Anyway, so they uh, yeah, well, unhoused works a little better than temporarily without residence or whatever they wanted you to say before. In any case, the you can imagine what it's like for the kid. How are they going to make friends? How are they going to tell anyone where they
What
live?
a,
You want to come over to my house
yeah.
for a birthday party or something? That's not going to happen. You know, so they're really on the back foot. But I having kids homeless is just like
It's actually, I would think that they would lose all their kids. A lot of homeless. A lot, if you become homeless, you're living in an area. If you're living in an area and your school, whatever school it is, whether it's a junior school or whether it's an elementary school or a high school, you suddenly are no longer in that neighborhood, are you?
oh, but it's just heartbreaking to me that we get homeless kids. I do remember growing up. There's that place behind. What is it? I can't remember the name right now. It's right behind um, Michelangelo's. That hotel there. They
Yeah.
had a lot of people on the edge in there for a while, and I was in and out of there for a while visiting somebody I knew. And I remember one day a guy with three little daughters. He had three little daughters, and he was in one of those rooms. He was lucky to be there. He was pretty happy to be there because he had a place now, like where he
Yeah.
could take his little daughters, and they were just like every other kid. They're bouncing up and down on the bed, and having fun, and they're all well dressed, clean, good looking children. And I thought to myself, what is it? And I saw the guy. The guy's pretty ordinary dude, because when you go in there, quite often it's not exactly ordinary dudes you find in there. Ordinary folk you find there. You always find, you can tell that there's a problem why they're there. But in this particular case, it just looked like a pretty ordinary guy out of work sort of thing.
Yeah.
It looked to me as if it would be a temporary thing for him. But I'm thinking to myself, how is it that a guy with three daughters ends up in a position where he has to go and get relief and have somebody put him up in this place for a few months,
Yeah.
so he could get on his feet? That happens. That happens out there. And I don't know. Are we set up to help? Are we really
No, I think we're
helping
not.
our brothers and sisters? Or you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I think we're not. And there's a couple of things at play in here. One is pride of the family who keep saying, pride of the parent or the family parent. I said parent deliberately though, because it's often a single parent left looking after the child when the homelessness arrives. So the parent experiencing homelessness as well often is there's too much pride to say this is about to happen to me and my children.
well, who does experience homelessness? Now, normally when we think of homelessness or the unhoused, as we're supposed to say now, they we think of mental health disorders and we
No,
think
I
of
don't.
food
I think
disorders.
it's. I think the thing is that, for example, it's been said. A lot of the people who come into our office who are homeless, and we do get people who are homeless coming and hiring us. Most of their situations where they've become homeless has been due to the end of a relationship.
Okay, but I'm saying who
No,
are homeless, and
yeah,
I'm trying to look at the spectrum of it. And
yeah.
when the average
So
person
it's
thinks
almost
of the homeless
anybody
person,
that can become homeless. You know.
well, yeah, well, I'm looking at the complete spectrum. And when people normally think of the homeless, they think of people who are mentally ill or have drug
Yeah.
problems or both. What came first, the chicken or the egg? On top of that, there are people that get there just because of economic problems and they become unhoused, as you pointed out. People in spousal relationships where they have nothing and now they're homeless, and because their marriages broke up. Other
Yeah.
people, like I mentioned, this guy, he there's no problem with him. There was no drug or alcohol problem with that guy. He just had three little daughters, and he was down on his luck, and lucky he had a place to go for a short. I'm assuming until he could get his feet back on the ground, get some kind of work going, and provide a home for his daughters.
Yeah.
So obviously the mother wasn't there. Whether the mother had passed away or mother had left the family, who knows? I've experienced that. A friend of mine
But
experienced that too, where his wife left and he ended up raising his daughter.
yeah, and obviously that's a tough situation. And I'm actually going to ask you because I had a quick look through for this. What happens to the kids that are now over 18, but they're still at school, who get lost in this by the system because they are aged out of they're aged out of the care programs. Yet, in fact, in reality, they're not yet adults; they're still at school. You know, because an 18-year-old could be 12th or 13th grade, right?
Well, yeah, but this is basically about kids. The ones that they zeroed in on were more or less, um, I don't know, maybe the average age of them would be about 12. They would look, they're focusing on more of the younger kids,
Yeah, I know everybody does,
you
but
know.
what happens to
And
those kids?
it's been a
What
couple of
happens
days
to
since I
those
read the
kids?
article, but
Yeah, what happens to those kids that are aged out of facts? They don't get help by anybody.
I don't know. You know what? There's something I didn't anticipate thinking of, and this I was more thinking of the
I
families and the
get it.
kids
I
that
get it.
more age school. So anyway, the study zeroes in on them, and of course, it talks about their problems, and they're not going to tell any of their friends at school where they live, and you know what I mean. And we reported about
Yeah,
March break. The only kids that didn't like March break are the kids that come from more humble means because they're going to get less to eat because the school supplies them with food. We're in a typically bad situation here. We're supposed to be a very wealthy country. I know there are continual economic problems one way or another, but still, we are still a fairly wealthy country.
yeah,
The Now another thing, these kids that are homeless or unhoused, they're surrounded by those people we normally assume are the homeless crews. They are the mentally ill, and those with mental health problems and those with drug problems, and often that's the same. This puts up a very dangerous situation for them because once you get drugs going, there's going to be thievery, theft of every kind. There's going to be crime. There's going to be crude and brutal behaviors. They're going to see terrible things. They're going to see people dying of overdose. They're going to see people twisted up like a pretzel, like the zombie drugs, as Gary called them, and that's their everyday sort of environment. They see way too much of that. That's got to be your whole life that will carry through with you.
Yeah.
And I don't. I think every effort should be made to get anyone with a child out of that environment. We've got that place on Summer Street, and we've got the place on Buchanan Street, and there are always cops there sometime, but I don't see any children in there. That might be a good place to just sort of convert to mothers with children that are homeless. You're going to get a better, you give the kids a better chance,
Yeah. Well, I don't know. We have the shelters in Culp Street and Nova House on. Used to be Nova House, but clearly they're not enough.
I don't know. It's just one more situation that you don't really see an end to coming up anytime soon.
Yeah.
And as I said, it's the article. I don't know. It's another study. Yeah, one more study. Great, another study. And you can study all you want, but where are the solutions? How are we going to fix it? And that part never seems to come up.
That was not part of the study at all, is it?
No, but it's one more study. Will it lead us to a solution? Or, it's interesting academic work, but in the meantime, it's kind of depressing too.
It is very depressing. All right. And YWCA director Elizabeth Zimmerman is kind of reflecting a lot of that, how depressing that whole thing is in what she said in this report.
Yeah, I remember too. She's also the one that's talking about Falls Manor, keeping that restaurant open and those little cabins behind it, sort of try to set up women with a chance, sort of a couple of months to sort of get on their feet, land on their feet, something in between to hold them together until they could get back into the workforce or whatever.
Well, that's kind of in part why I emphasized her involvement, the comments that she made on this.
I don't know. When I talked to a couple of homeless people, I recorded it actually on my phone. There's a couple of homeless people on Bridge Street there, and I happened to pull over and I see they were looking for cans and stuff, and I happened to have a whole pile of empties in my van. And so I says, "You want these?" It was close to the not far from the beer store. So, "You want these?"
I said, "It's not open on Bridge anymore, is it?"
Well, not now. This was a couple years ago.
3 years ago, yeah.
And they gladly took them, and they were in bags anyway. It's easy to carry. And they told me that once you get homeless, it seems once you fall off that cliff and become homeless, it's like a Herculean task to get back to a place where you have a home every day.
Yeah.
Where you actually have a place to go home.
Yeah.
It's something most of us take advantage of or take for granted. But imagine that you don't even have a place to go.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Okay. Anything else on that?
Nope.
No. All right. Moving along. This always bothers me when I see a politician doing this. Usually when you start using the F word, you lose me. Like even if you've got something decent to say, and you start dropping the F word, I'm sorry. I think you are totally out of order, right? So Trump is been issuing expletive-laden threats over opening the Straits of Hormuz. He's given Iran until 8 p.m. Eastern time today, right?
Yeah, I have another article here too, which is an opinion piece by Gwen Dyer about what's going on there. But this, I think, I listened to this and I thought to myself, no, not even Trump is this dumb. What's he trying to do?
Yeah,
And then I remember the Mad Men scenario that Henry Kissinger did when he was working with the Vietnamese. So Kissinger said, "Look, he said that Nixon's unstable. So if he doesn't hear what he doesn't like, he's going to bomb the crap out of him." And that's what they did.
yeah,
So every time something didn't go well or the way Nixon wanted it, they would bomb the crap out of Hanoi.
yeah.
And that's what Kissinger said. And Nixon went along with this. Pretend to be a madman, pretend to be sort of unhinged, and you're going to do just about anything. And so they think we're working with a guy that's a little bit off his lid. And I think using language like that and sounding so unpresidential, using coarse language and enraged too, like that's really not really presidential, is it? When you're out of control, rage, yelling, "You bastards, you effing bastards, you're gonna open this thing, or I'm gonna destroy you and blow you back into the Stone Age." That really isn't sound too presidential, does it?
No, not at all.
It sounds like a guy that
It's an asshole. That's asshole talk, right?
yeah. Now I thought to myself, not even Trump is that dumb, but so then I thought back to the Henry Kissinger thing, the madman approach. But the Iranians know that's he's already done that a couple of times, and the Iranians know that, so that I don't think that's going to work. And he says he wants to get the negotiations back going again, and the Iranians have said, "Well, who's gonna guarantee that our negotiators are not going to get killed?"
Yeah.
Every time we got negotiations or something like that, you twice in the middle of negotiations they attacked.
Yeah.
Twice they put the Iranians at ease, saying, "Okay, we're in negotiations and things are going well." Oh, look. And they even had, before they attacked the Iranians this time, they had the Omani diplomats saying, "Oh, we're very close to a deal. Things are looking good." And so the Iranians think, okay, things are heading good. And then what did they find? Israel starts bombing them, and the U.S. jumps on and bombs with Israel and just keeps going. How much of a threat is this? It is a big threat because he has the threat, run out tonight and at 8 p.m. apparently Eastern time, in which he says he's going to knock out desalination plants, electrical plants, roadways, all manner of other things. So when you come and start hitting civilian targets like that, now the argument is going to be, well, the military, the IRGC uses that electricity, so it's a game target. But so do millions of Iranians. So how do you differentiate between
what's worse about this whole thing is Trump has basically said that there's got to be a deal by tonight at 8 p.m. that is acceptable to him, right? Now, probably 3/4 of what you and I might say might not be acceptable to Donald Trump. So goodness knows what will happen with the Iranian negotiators. I can't see that happening at all. That's like putting a red target on their back immediately, right? Comply or we're going anyway. I don't care about the I really don't care about the results of the negotiation, he's saying.
No, that's what I mean. He's kind of using. That's what I suspect. He's using a variation of Kissinger's madman diplomacy technique that he used with the Vietnamese, where he says the leader is insane and unhinged. The difference here is Trump does not have an intermediary saying that.
Yeah.
Also, the Iranians don't want to talk to Kushner or what's the other guy? Starts with a W. His name always skips my mind. You know the guy.
Yeah, I know, but I can't remember his name either.
Yeah, it always jumps out of my head. I don't know why. It's like I could see him, but it starts with a W, and I can't. It's his old golfing buddy. Like he made his old golfing buddy his like foreign minister or whatever.
Yeah.
Wolfowitz, is that it? No, that's not it. No, that's a different guy. I'll have to look it up.
Yeah.
I don't know why that keeps leaving my head.
Probably because you don't think of him. Probably because he's got no government experience. You kind of dismiss him. That's
well, he messed up big with the Witkoff. Yeah. So he messed up big time with the Russians.
Yeah.
As we know, Trump said that he could stop the war between Russia and Ukraine within a day, even before he got into office. It's been he hasn't even come close. He just keeps going and going and going. He also said he was going to fix the Gaza thing. Well, he finds that Netanyahu keeps stabbing him in the back or making it impossible for him to start that peace thing he's got, the board of peace, because he keeps killing journalists and whatever. But anyway,
the board. We haven't heard anything more about the board of peace, and to my mind, it's dead. It was dead in the water before it started. As soon as you have people like Carney and Blair ignore it, you had it was done.
Well, you guys got Woodcock and Jared Kushner. They're busy making all kinds of money with all these Arab allies and stuff like that. And people are people are investing, so they're buying their influence. And that's why the Iranians said, no, we want somebody else. Give us Vance. At least he's not connected with Witkoff or Kushner. I don't think Vance is going to be able to do much to negotiate a peace, even if he went, because how can he, right? Trump's not going to veto everything he says, whatever. But the reason why they want Vance is to snub Trump, because they're saying this is the next guy. We want to talk to the next guy. He might be the president coming forward. He might be the next president. We don't want to talk to the old president.
Yeah, but you can't.
The lame duck president.
That's an interesting concept there, because it's assuming two things, because there's no guarantee that in 28 that Vance is going to win the presidency. It could be, it's wide open in reality. After all, we can't even guarantee what the House is going to look like this fall, can we?
Well, Vance is most likely going to be a prominent position, even if he does not win the election coming forward, even if Trump lets him, because Trump, how he wants to run for another term. That's probably not going to happen. No matter what he does, it's probably not going to happen. We'd have a civil war if it did. And so he's had his 2 terms according to Constitution. So that opens the door for Vance. And that's why I say, like, Vance and Rubio and those guys are going to work to get rid of Trump pretty soon, because he's making things very difficult for Republicans or anybody the right of center. There's making it very, very difficult. When he goes on TV and he starts using bad language, even MAGA, who are a lot of them are really religious people. They don't like that, you know. So
Yeah.
anyway,
There's a lot of people out there who are of the opinion that bad language is non-presidential, and as soon as you start using it, you close your ears. And many of them, top MAGA supporters, and generally speaking, Trump has kept away from the bad mouthing.
yeah, and which makes you wonder that is he trying his hand at the madman thing? The other thing, of course, which the Iranians are worried about is every time they negotiate, the last two times they negotiated, in the middle of negotiations, they've been attacked. Midnight Hammer back in June or July. So they were in middle of negotiations there, and they were in the middle of negotiations in the leading up to the recent war, and you can understand what they're saying. Every time we go into negotiations, our negotiators are killed, or our leaders are killed, and in the middle of it, why do we want to negotiate? How can we even go into negotiations when the last time we were negotiating, you didn't tell us there was an end of negotiations. You just started bombing us.
Yeah, and basically, Iran has rejected ceasefire proposals because they're saying they want a permanent end to the war.
Yeah, they don't want to. They said, okay, we got this 45-day ceasefire plan from the Pakistanis. We're trying very hard to stop this, or at least look good in the eyes of President Trump. They have one of the generals has a relationship with President Trump. In any case, he's so they're trying to look good in the eyes. And, this is what we got. But they're not talking to anybody of any high level. They're talking to very low level people because nobody of any significance wants to stick their head out because they're going to get killed. And so every time they say, we got this deal for 45-day ceasefire, the Iranian official says, what deal is that? Nobody, we're going to carry on with the war. And so this 45-day treaty, the Iranian says, why do we want a 45-day ceasefire? We want an end of the war. If we got a 45-day ceasefire, what's that going to mean? You're going to get, it gives you time to get more missiles and bombs and come back in 45 days and blast us all over again.
Yeah. And the other thing about it
also gives you 45 days to hunt down more of our government officials and kill them.
And 45 days in which to get other ships closer to the region.
Well, yeah, they got as many as they need now. They are afraid, of course. The mighty American Navy is afraid to go through the Straits of Hormuz. They managed to do it back in the 80s. They had convoys back in the 80s during the Iran-Iraq war back then, and it worked. But the U.S. is very afraid of having a humiliation of having one of their major vessels torpedoed or missiled and sank.
Yeah.
So the mighty American Navy will not go in there because it's a shooting gallery. That's why Trump wanted to dump it on the UK and France. Hey, you guys come over here and help us out with this strait.
Here's an interesting question, though. So basically, the Iranians have said publicly, the Iranians have basically been talking publicly about the need, I forget whether it's all right. Go on, doesn't matter. I lost track of what I wanted to do. The Straits of Hormuz are open, but not to our enemies, is what they said. Right now, here's a question: who is seen as their enemy today? Right, because clearly people like Britain and France and Canada and Australia have said no to the US.
Well, he ran into trouble. He couldn't. They didn't plan it well enough. They felt that a massive decapitation in Iran would, at a time when the Iranians were in the streets, had been in the streets rioting, looking for change. They figured this was the opportune time.
Yeah.
Kill the top 100 leaders, and then the people will rise up and they'll super peace really quick, and we'll get what we want. That didn't happen. They didn't plan it well enough, and it's true that they knew that the Straits of Hormuz would be a choke point that the Iranians could use, but obviously they didn't think that the Iranians would last that long. Obviously, they didn't believe the Iranians would be able to fight back the way they have been doing. So they made some serious miscalculations.
Yeah, and
I mean, they are getting crushed. They're getting crushed. Like, there's no doubt about that. But they're fighting back. That rescue of those two downed pilots. Everybody's happy that they got them out, but it cost them $500 million.
Yeah,
$500 million, and that's a conservative estimate just to get them out. $500 million to get two airmen out. It's worth it, of course, but what happens when the war escalates and you get 5 or 6 airmen back there? You know, how long can you pay for this?
And remember how far away Tehran is from the actual from the Straits, from the Persian Gulf, right? It's a long way to fly to Tehran. It's about 700 kilometers.
Well, they're doing it fine. They have no problem. They're bombing the crap out of Tehran, as we've said before, right down to the
it's still a long way. If you take a plane out on approach to Tehran, it's got a long way to get back.
Well, they're doing it just fine right now. I mean, they did knock down an F-15, but that's a very fine jet, and it's a workhorse, but it's not a stealth thing. So I don't know what's going to happen. Now, I do believe that tonight they're going to light up. They're going to really light up a lot of Iran because Trump has been backed into a corner.
Yeah.
He's now realized how Netanyahu suckered him in. And let me just say this. Did Netanyahu sucker him? Yes, he did. Back in 1992, Netanyahu said that Iran is 3 to 5 years, they're going to have a nuclear bomb. That was in 92. In 95, he said the same thing. In 94, he said they were very close, very close. Now, no president took the bait all these times. In 2012, he says they were just a few months away. And 2015 and 2018 and 2023 and 2025, he always said the same thing. They're on the cusp of having a bomb. 34 years. 34 years ago, they were going to be very close to having a bomb. 30 years ago, they were extremely close to having a bomb. 30 years ago, have they got a bomb? No. Who does have a bomb? Israel, not Iran. So they're using that as an excuse, and they suckered Trump into it. And he's being the dumbass that fell for it. And now he's in a position where he realizes that Netanyahu's used him. And he can't unplug it because of the power of the Israeli lobby in the United States.
Yeah. Well, and there's a difference between and it's I wholeheartedly agree that right now probably Iran's in no position to create the bomb, let alone to launch the bomb if they could create it, right?
They probably don't know where their uranium is. That, I mean, it's presumed to be at the bottom of one of those mountains.
Yeah, but there's 2 other things that one has to consider in that regard, in that whole regard as well. Is not just do they have the capability? Do they have the technology to be able to produce a bomb? Do they have the willingness? Do they have the mental capacity to go and make that step? And generally speaking, they may be in that situation whereby they have the capability to build the bomb, but they lack the desire to. You know, often you can have the desire to create the bomb without the ability to have it, but when you have the 2 lined up, you know what I mean?
Well, it's often said that the Khomeini they just killed had a religious feeling that the bomb was too dehumanizing, too evil a thing for, so he didn't want to go for it. But you can see that he could see that some of his generals or whatever may have made sure that they had enough refined uranium to get at least a 60% to kind of be the deterrent they hoped it would be, but it wasn't. Anyway.
And when this whole thing started, Dave, if you recall, I said to you that at one time, Iran had one of the largest armies in the world. However, that I know that at the moment it does not. However, that doesn't mean to say that Iran is going to just fold over just because the Americans say so. No, they're not, right?
Well, they happen to be holding up pretty good considering that they're being bombed by the greatest power ever known on Earth. Nothing comes close to the U.S. military. They're being bombed relentlessly by the U.S. military, using all the skills and intelligence they have. The number 2 huge air force in the world is probably the Israelis. It is by and far just really an extension of the Americans. It's got all the American equipment. It's got all the American bombs. It's got all the American intelligence. So you have the big elephant and the little elephant stomping all over Tehran or Iran, all over the place. And somehow this little pipsqueak keeps throwing bombs back at them.
Yeah.
And
all right.
I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. We've got 8.5 hours, 12.5 hours to find out, right?
Jeez, I hope something comes up.
Yeah.
All I can see is more Iranians killed. I guess they've killed, well, maybe about 300 kids by now, and they've killed 2,000 innocent people. So if you look at the casualty rates, they've killed about 3,000, 4,000 people in Iran right now. A lot of those guys are military that they've killed, but the other half are civilians. The double tap bombing they did on the bridge that Trump bragged about, that shows you how cruel they are. They did a double tap. So they shot a missile at the bridge. Instead of sending 2 missiles at a time, they double tap. They wait until the emergency vehicles and people come to the area to help with emergency, and then they hit them with another bomb. It's called a double tap strategy. You wait till emergency. Israelis are really good at that. They bomb a place, and then when all emergency people come to try to help, then they bomb it again.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So moving on. Moving on. So the Niagara-bound lanes on the Burlington Skyway will be closed every night this week, and part of the reason for this is that they're basically shutting down 2 lanes because of road work. So on Tuesday night, tonight, tomorrow night, they're going to be from 9 till 6. And then Thursday night, Friday night, they're from 11 till 6.
Yep. So basically, check before you go. If you're going to go up and down the QEW in the next week or so, be careful of time constraints that you may face with what's happening on the QEW now.
Yeah. Yeah. So take all that into consideration when you're going anywhere, and just be very cautious. Okay.
Yeah, be super cautious, actually.
All right, and it's Niagara bound, not Toronto bound.
Well, you keep an eye on it for the rest of the year. Of course, we're getting into the season where we begin the construction on fix our roads, and our roads continually need to be fixed because of the kind of weather we have, and the salt we put on them, and the heave and the water and all the other stuff that happens. It's a continual thing. It's one of those things that we have to do.
I have a question for our honourable counsel, and maybe Laurie Lococo, if she's listening, might well know the answer to this one. I'd be grateful to know. They as you know, they were putting in this new hydrogen plant on Whirlpool Drive um, last year, and they redid the surface between Stanley Avenue and the bridge. There's like 200 meters between the bridge and Niagara Parkway. That is some of the shittiest road in the city. Why didn't they finish that lot off as well? And when is that going to get done?
Well, right. We'll see if we get an answer.
Yep. There we go. All right, I'm just putting it out there. All right. So, moving on. Niagara Falls Public Library is reaching out on April 9th. So April 9th, which is Thursday, they're going to be reaching out. They're going to be having
Niagara Library Outreach.
Outreach, yes.
It's part of the National Library Outreach.
Yes.
Which is North America wide, by the way. It's not just Canada. It's North America wide.
Yeah.
And what this is they're trying to outreach to the public. The library is a brilliant place to go. It is underutilized by the citizens here, though. I find that of all the services and things that can happen there, it's underutilized. And I'll give you an example. The lady that lives a couple up floor from me, and she was having trouble with her computer, and she'd ask me to help and stuff like that. Well, I knew a little bit more than she did, but not much more. So I suggested that you go to the library.
Yeah.
I suggested
what you're basically saying. What you're saying is it was like the blind leading the blind.
Yeah, really. So what I did was I suggested that she go to the library, and they'll help her with that. And I phoned right there on the spot. I phoned the library, set her up an appointment. She went to the library. You could go to any library, but she went to the one here at Stanford, which is closer. And within a matter, she didn't even need. They offer you 50 minutes, 10 minutes less than an hour, and then you could come back for another appointment. She said she wasn't even halfway done, and they taught her everything she needed to know. And that fixed it for her. So those are how many people even know that service is out there. So the outreach is a good idea. Get out there and tell everybody about the library, what kind of services it can provide to you.
Yeah,
you are paying for them, and they are. And believe me, I used to go to the library much more than I do now. It's computers keeps me away from them. Probably because I can look up anything I need probably in a computer first. But there's a lot of very interesting. I used to go to the library and just use the library and the computers because they had the books and the computers available at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Well, and the point being about looking things up on the computer today is you're not stopped by the fact that the library shut at 6 o'clock. You can still do that even if it's 2 o'clock in the morning, right?
Yeah. So basically, and this particular program replaces the Bookmobile Day, the National Bookmobile Day, which was a program they had before, which is no longer working as well as it used to, because what they find out, they now are targeting areas. So they still have the bookmobile, but they just don't go and park places and wait till somebody comes to get the book. They actually target places where events or something are already happening, or places they know where people are, and then they'll go there and provide their services there. You can imagine the amount of services they could provide for. We just talked about unhoused people. You can imagine how many services they might be able to provide for them. You know, when they're trying to communicate with government regulatory bodies or whatever they're trying to do, trying to get housing, trying to get food, trying to get anyhow, they can go to the library, and the library can help them out with the resources they have there.
Yeah. The other thing, of course, about that is the kind of like a hotline that one can ring to get your local library out to some areas, to get the mobile library moving. I.e., can you ring up, 1-800 Bring Me Books?
I don't know. anyway, it says what is it? Of course, it asks the question, what is library outreach, and so on, and beyond the buildings and into the outside world. Make connections, breaking down barriers. Of course, it's all a blab, but how do they do that? So it's important that the library is meant for everyone, not just everyone is able to make it to the library. That's the problem. Not everyone can make it to the library.
Yeah.
And the library is meant for everyone. So it says here, there's no coincidence the National Library Outreach Day used to be called the National Bookmobile Day because bookmobiles were the way in which you do. Well, you still got the bookmobiles, right? But after conducting research that involved visiting some of the well-established bookmobiles in Hamilton and Toronto, we identified outreach as a major function that Niagara Falls Public Library Mobile leading up to May 24th. So you won't see public mobile stops listed on our website anymore. What you'll find is that staff are offering targeted visits to schools, retirement homes, day programs, day camps, and English as a second language, shelters, and public housing, in addition to community events. Well, I know my mom can get books when she was at Lundy's retirement home, and now where she is now in Bella. They have people that provide them books. The library had a service that went through the retirement home, and they would deliver the books you wanted, and then pick them up after you're done with them. That's cool. That's cool, right? So they come right to the room.
Yeah,
my mom was an avid reader, so she'd have a stack of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good service, and of course, I always look guiltily at my stack of books. Each of them have got 150 pages read in them, but not any more than that.
Well, yeah, like most of the books that I had were nonfiction books, and so I'd read sections of them. Let's say I had a book on philosophy. I've got one there on philosophy, and I might read what Schopenhauer put in it, and not read what Nietzsche or whoever else did. Might come back a little later. They go, I wonder what. I get a little bit of education on Aristotle, so I'll dig out my book of 100 greatest philosophers or something, and I'll dig into that, and I think, oh, okay. I've got a book on existentialism, theories of stuff. I've probably read most of the book, but in pieces. I'll take a section on existentialism.
Yes.
This particular, I'll look at Nietzsche, or I'll look at Kierkegaard. I might read what Kierkegaard has in it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's the same here because I generally speaking don't read fiction. I get into a fiction book. See, what happens to me is I'll get into a fiction book around about Christmas, and then I'll buy a new one next Christmas. I haven't finished it though. I haven't finished the first one though. Yeah,
and being a guy, it's the same for me. I don't often read much fiction, although I've given it a stab a few times and I've been happy with the stories I've read, but I still lean more to fact-based stuff. That's typical of men and women. Women usually read much more fiction than men do.
I don't know about
anyway.
That.
So anyway, the April 9th is this outreach thing, and so the library wants to think of it as every day as an outreach day. Now, what's going to happen is outreach is going to pop up programs for children and families at city parks, pools during the summer times. It's tables and events. That's a good place to be when all the kids go to the pools, and right, you have a book. After you finish your swim, you go and check out the books you can take home, and read, and then come back and the next time when you go swimming. That's good. You're getting the library services out there. You're getting books and stuff. Yeah. But I would like to know. I would like to have them. I wonder if they had services that they could come to a person's home, like I was talking about the old lady that lived upstairs for me, and she went to the library and learned how to use her computer. She was tickled pink about it. but some people can't leave their places. So I wondered if they had services where a person could actually come to your house.
Yeah. Well, there's also the other thing that when I was touring around 4 years ago, getting votes in that election, one of the things that is really quite nice that we have here is these little libraries that people put up outside in the street. So, there's take a book, leave a book.
Yes. Anyway,
Yeah.
we got anything else?
Not on that, no.
I think we're pretty well done with that. So basically, on April 9th, and it's going to head out, so take advantage of your library if you can. I know a lot of, when I went into the library a couple of times, there's some pretty poor people in there. You working in the library, getting on the computers and things like that. That's a service that's provided for people who don't have a whole lot of. I didn't have my internet working or anything like that. Where do you think I went? I went every day to the library. I used their computers and did what I had to do.
Yeah,
that's the service.
And Ricky says the mobile library is not in the budget anymore. Okay, so data shows that Americans are not heading to Canada, unlike what has been said.
Well, yeah, you have this. Both times that Trump got elected, you had all these people say, "Oh, I'm going to go to Canada, and all that." Also, the other thing that we feared up here, both times that Trump got in, is that we would get all their illegals, all kinds of people coming up here. And during the first Trump manifestation, of course, we got a lot of illegals trying to crash the border because they were afraid of getting scooped up in the States and getting tossed out.
Yeah.
That doesn't seem to have happened too much this time. And also the intellectual and academic movement of people from the United States into Canada has not happened to the degree as we are led to think it is.
Yeah.
I highly suspected that in the first place. I can't see people uprooting themselves and coming to Canada for political reasons.
It's one thing to say it is quite another thing to do it.
Yeah. So a lot of people get alarmed. I even know friends down there that thought they might bail up to Canada after Trump got in the second time. But when it comes right down to it, they're not. As a matter of fact, they're coming in less than they had during Biden's time. So Trump could look to that and say, well, academics were running away from the U.S. not that much. So what's happening is there's a flow between Canada and the United States going from U.S. into Canada, from Canada into U.S. We find that a lot of Canadians with talent go into the U.S. and work. My son did for about 6 years. He lived and worked down there. And I've got friends that relocated down there because they get better job opportunities. And most of them are still both dual citizens.
Yeah.
So this business about people making a run for it to the Canadian border is not right. Economics is the thing that is really driving American, well-established Americans who are leaving the United States are not leaving so much for political purposes. They are leaving, though, to places, not necessarily Canada, but places where it's cheaper to live.
Yeah.
We find that Americans are leaving, and as a matter of fact, there are more Americans leaving the United States since 1935, 90 years ago. There were the same thing during the middle of the Great Depression. A lot of people were leaving the United States looking for some other place, a better opportunity. In this case, they're looking for better, cheaper places to live, among them being Ireland and Thailand and Bali and a number of different other places around the world, even Mexico, that are cheaper to live in, less expensive.
Exactly.
So that is what's driving a lot of emigration out of the United States. Has to do with dollars and cents, not so much political.
Well, and you can take from what my son did. He sold his house here in Niagara Falls, and he bought an apartment building in Mombasa, Kenya.
Yeah, well, he lives there. Well, does he live there less expensively? Obviously.
Yes.
What's he got for employment?
He lives off his house, off the apartment building.
Oh, he rents it.
He rents it out. Yeah, he rents out an apartment building. Right. He sold his house here in Niagara Falls and bought an apartment building in Mombasa, Kenya. Okay. Now he's retired. You know, he's writing is what he's doing, right? But that doesn't earn him a penny.
Yeah, well, I would say that he's done well. Then he's smart, but that is essentially what. Now I've heard it for years. Well-established Americans moving large scale into Mexico for a while, but they do go to other places, and it's listed there how many different there are. And basically there are cheaper places to live, especially if you got that big Yankee greenback. If you've been working and say retired, or even still working but looking for a cheaper place to live, and you've got that Yankee greenback backing you up.
And again, let's face it, coming north to Canada is economically not a smart move.
Normally it isn't, but we do have room for. There's a lot of room for. We heard about nurses, a lot of nurses coming up, and they ask for nurses. We've also heard about doctors, a lot of doctors coming up. We find that a fair amount of academics are coming up here, not so much because of politics directly, but indirectly. When a lot of the universities had to shut down some of their programs because the government, once Trump got in, he defunded a lot of that stuff, and so a lot of university professors came north, but but also a lot of Canadians are going south. Why? Because of economic opportunity. So just like my son went there and lived there for 5 or 6 years, it was economic opportunity that he had.
120,000 Canadians went south in 2025. 3% or more than in 2024. For the fourth straight year, that figure has climbed.
I think that's always going to happen because there are more opportunities, particularly if you're skilled. Let's say if you're a skilled hockey player, right? Or say you're a skilled baseball player. Let's put it. You think you're going to stay in Canada? No, you're going to go to the States. No. What if you're a skilled engineer? What if you're a really skilled engineer, right? And you can't get a job here, but you can get one in the States. Where are you going to go?
Yeah. And you could be the best baseball player in the league. You're not going to just remain to Canada's one team. You're not just going to be open to that one Canadian team. You're going to be open to the 30-odd American teams that there are out there.
Yeah, and let's say even if you're really good at something, I knew a guy that went down there and did flooring. So what he did. We went down there for a visit. He started working for a flooring outfit, found that he was really good at it, and did very, very well working in, I think it was Texas, working on flooring. So he did a fantastic job flooring, and he had to come back up here to sort things out so he could go back in. He had to come back up here and get a Queen's pardon because he had a whole pot charge hanging over him. So he had to get that fixed up, and he got a Queen's pardon, and then he was able to go back down into the U.S. And work legally. But there's a situation there where the guy was just kind of wandering around, started working down there, and then found himself. He really found a niche that wasn't available to him up here.
Yep, exactly. So
you hear that all over the place. I've known people that gone down there and done hairdressing, for crying out loud. You know, another guy I know, he was a truck driver down there. You know, so
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Well, there you go. So statistics are not always what you make them out to be.
no, and the hoofra that you hear in the press, oh, and the C3 bill, yeah, that's very important. Yeah, the C3 bill now has made it much easier for people with even distant sort of Canadian roots to come back to Canada. So if you can claim, and in this case, an American, but anyone anywhere in the world, if somebody's been born in the United States, you know, I don't know how far it will go back, but Thomas Edison had people that were from from Canada in his family tree. So did Chrysler, I think. He had some too. So anybody with any kind of Canadian roots can then go back and apply to be a Canadian, and that goes back a couple of generations, I think. I haven't looked so closely in it. I know it's a big deal that Supreme Court says that we can't limit Canadian citizenship the same way they're doing it in the States by how long you've been outside of Canada. So if you have some sort of traceable Canadian citizen in your past, in your family past, you may be able to come back into Canada. You are able to come back into Canada or establish yourself in Canada with a lot less resistance.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
It's more open.
So that's what C3. That's what C3 is about. Opening up more stronger connections to Canada for those people who may be left, whose parents and grandparents maybe have left Canada some time ago. So they allow them back in.
Yeah. And you might never have been into Canada. I'm not so sure. I only briefly looked at C3, was a couple weeks ago now. So I can't talk to it with any sort of definition.
No, that's what it is, right? It's there for that purpose, right? All right. Anything else for today? Because I think we're pretty well done.
Yeah, thanks. Whoever tipped us off about C3, that's a good point. Thank you.
All right. And Dave? And
I'll bring up Gaza again. So what's happened in Gaza? They've killed 3 journalists that were in a convoy. They also bombed someone else, and they ended up killing a few kids too. 8 people altogether they killed. This is really it's another incident that got the Americans really mad, angry, and the children they killed. And what was apparently happening was the journalists had a drone, and they were taking the drone up just to look at panoramic views of the city and the damage that had been done. As soon as Israelis saw the drone, they assumed that it was going to be some sort of weapon and killed the 3 guys. I mean, and they were out in the open. They weren't hiding or nothing, and killed whoever's with them to boot, which happened to include a few children. Seriously, that's what Israel wants the United States to do to Iran, and that's what that fool Trump is going to do. I hope not. Anyway, without further ado, I bid you adieu.